J.I. Packer said that the idea that all are children of God is not found anywhere in the Bible. Is that the case? Passages like John 8:44 seem to reinforce this when Jesus tells these religious leaders who don't believe him that you are of your father, the devil. And the reason they don't believe him is because they are not of God. And this reinforces this notion that only some people are the children of God. What we have to keep in mind is when we are speaking of humanity as the children of God, we need to have two categories in mind. Categorically speaking, every human being has a creation identity and an eschatological identity. And Paul affirms this in Acts 17 when he's speaking to these Gentile philosophers, and he tells them, quoting one of their own philosophers, and he affirms that all should consider themselves God's offspring. So Paul sees it as right to commend to even unbelieving philosophers that every single human being should consider themselves offspring or children of God. So where does he get this? Well, first in Genesis 1 verse 26, when God creates man on the sixth day, before he does so, he has this dialogue where he says, "Let us create man in our image after our likeness." And some might point out, well, image doesn't actually communicate sonship. And with that, I would agree. Image seems to be more of a designation of royalty, that humanity is going to have dominion over the creation. They're to image God forth. So as God rules the cosmos, humanity images God's dominion by his stewardship of all things created. However, that word likeness creates a familial link between humanity and God. And we see this in Genesis 5 verse 3, where just as God made Adam in his own likeness, we're told that Adam has a son after his likeness and names him Seth. Just as Seth is linked to Adam through likeness because he comes from his father, so all humanity is linked to God through likeness because we've all come from God. And so in that way, it's right for us to consider all humanity, in terms of our creational identity, is we are God's offspring. Everyone is a child of God in that sense. Now, it's true that the image of God in us has been marred, but it has not been entirely lost. Humanity still maintains its creational dignity. It still matters that you exist. You are a human and you are made in the image of God. All are God's offspring in this way. But it is also the case that in Adam, we have fallen and lost our right to God's inheritance. And so we have been disinherited, some might say. And it's important in this sense to recognize that only those who are united to Christ by faith are God's eschatological people or family. And when I use that word eschatologically, I mean the hope that God promises to the world of a new creation and a lasting inheritance where his people will be with him forever. That hope only belongs to those who have been adopted by the Father through the work of the Son. And in this sense, only Christians believing in Christ by faith belong to the family of God, the eschatological people, the people who will have God's favor forever and enjoy his inheritance because they have been united to Jesus. They have been reconciled to God by faith.